Today on Core Conversations, we had Roxy Menzies. Roxy is a Pilates coach, a writer, and an influencer in the fitness world. Her articles are inspiring to women to be the authentic self. And she's a world traveler, presently planting her roots in Toronto while she gets accustomed to her new job title, Mom. We talked about the grace we need to extend to ourselves and how we can continue to take care of ourselves and be successful in this fitness journey. Enjoy the conversation.
Menzies. I teach Pilates, obviously, but I also teach Yamuna body rolling, gyrotonic, and I come from a background in dance. I'm back in Canada. I was away for quite a bit. I've been traveling and working and teaching around the globe. But I'm pretty much back full time, just outside of Toronto.
Okay.
And just my baby's almost 7 months. So navigating life as a mom,
Yes.
and trying to find the balance of, work and creativity and all of that in
Right.
COVID,
In
no
COVID.
less.
Right.
Yeah.
That was one of the conversations when I had Marimba on as well. Like, having that baby at the same time, building your brand, finding your balance, staying relevant, speaking. It's just a tremendous balancing act.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I wouldn't even compare myself to Marimba. I feel like Marimba is just on top of it. She's doing so much. Whereas, I don't know. I get really torn. Like I'm torn between just kind of wanting to step away,
Mm-hmm.
and almost like disappear for a year or two and come back
Yes.
in, but then, having other ideas and things that I want to write and say and do. So I think it's what probably all parents go through, that juggle.
Absolutely. That's I'm sure that a sabbatical would be attractive.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, COVID has presented a bit of a sabbatical, you know what I mean? Um, like I think there isn't that pressure to actually get back into the studio. And I don't know about you, but well, actually, you're in Mississauga, so you're
Mhm.
still in phase two. You can't
We're still in
open.
phase
Is that
two,
correct?
right? Yeah.
Right.
Well, this studio is a clinic as well, so it's open by virtue of having healthcare professionals, chiros, etc.
Okay.
So I'm in my space every day, and it's virtual stuff. It's almost like I'm just trying to be here as much as I can. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But
But
yeah.
are your clients coming in there? Because you just said virtually.
I have a few people that like some high need clients that I kept training the whole time. Guys who have broke his
Okay.
a guy broke his neck that before who's on his rehab that just has to move. So I found some ways to just work with a few people, but by no means am I open and
Like
training a ton of
full
people, right?
on,
So
right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good for you. That's pretty good.
yeah,
Because there are so many studios that are just completely shut.
right.
I know at least one studio where I always guest teach at when I'm in town, and they've had to permanently close down,
Hmm.
and that's just north of Toronto. And then there's another studio that I guest teach at, and she's asked me to come in and teach, and I'm just like, I'm not ready.
Yeah,
Like I know they're going to be careful and I know the class sizes are going to be smaller, but I've got a baby and I live with two elderly people, I
hmm.
can't take those risks. So,
Right.
yeah,
Exactly. And as much as it has been a sabbatical to some point, the business side of me has been like work hard while everyone's sleeping, like push, go,
yeah,
get, create, and just try and make ground on everyone who's slowing down. So there's that driven part of me that hasn't taken time other than 4 days off this whole COVID time,
yeah.
right? So
I think it's
um
like everything. There's going to be people that are going to really thrive during this.
mhm.
And then there's going to be people that maybe are struggling, or a lot of people are sort of resetting and I don't want to say reestablishing themselves, but maybe figuring out, what wasn't working before and what they want to change and come back. It
Yeah,
could be a change of
redefining, right?
lifestyle. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like a whole new era.
That's it, and just like based on some of your blogs and stuff too, like it's a great opportunity to change the narrative, right? Like if you have an idea of yourself, you can really rewrite that script right now.
That's true. I totally agree with that.
Yeah. I was just reflecting on something you were saying earlier about I see Nikita and some other people coming on now as well. My early morning West Coast people,
Yeah.
coming to say
Yeah,
hi.
uni says getting more clarity for sure.
Yes, exactly. With the baby, I remember when my son was maybe just under a year, and we were going to this church. So I started to volunteer in the childcare center. One, because there was never any men in there, and two, because I just wanted to be with my kid, right? So I felt
Yeah.
that that's something I just wanted to do. And there was another dad in there, and the whole time I was struggling with my business at that time. I wanted to grow it. I wanted to do more. I wanted to be all these things, but also wanted to be involved as a dad. I didn't want to miss stuff.
Yeah.
And being involved in church, you wanted to do more stuff at church too. And you wanted to be involved in all these different things and have your hand in a million things with this new baby at the same time. And the guy I'll never forget this gentleman there. He was playing with his kids, and I think the church was talking about a missions trip and going around the world and doing all these different things. And he looked at me and he pointed to my kid and he goes, "That's your missions trip.
Yeah.
Like that is your mission right now, is to raise him." So it's almost like he gave me permission to let go of my projects and the things that would make me feel good about doing other things for people.
Right.
And someone's giving that permission to be, okay, no, like if you're a dad, that's good enough.
I totally agree with that. And that's what I'm feeling as well. And that's why I said sometimes I feel torn between, just wanting to kind of shut away and just be with my daughter. And it's changing every day, finding that balance of feeling like I am having enough quality time with her, but also having some time for myself. And then, like the other projects that I want to be involved in. But yeah, I completely agree with that because I mean, she was born January 5th and it's already the end of July. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
it's so true. It sounds so cliche when people say, oh, they grow so fast. You don't want to miss out on the moment. And it's really true because even the
it's so true.
first few months feel a bit like a blur,
Hmm.
So I'm taking in all that I can. And I agree with you. She's number one, you know. I
Yes.
mean, someone else said that to me too. You can always make money. You can
You could
always make
find
money. You
money.
can always yeah.
Yeah.
I think most of us are pretty resourceful and
Hmm.
clever. Yeah, but yeah, we can always make money. We can always do other things. And we have to remember sometimes, I think that's what we're talking about, finding grace
Hmm.
and sort of going back and trusting as well that, other opportunities will present themselves at the right time,
Yes.
that we don't have to force and push so many things.
Right. And I feel like that's one of the things that in my life too, we try and manufacture opportunities and they will be there if we're patient and being, diligent and faithful and dedicated to what's in our hands to do right now. The next
Yeah.
thing will come. We really don't have to force it to make it happen. But sometimes, if we get caught up in our social media or get caught up in what people are doing, it's easy to, get lost on that
Yeah.
trail as
Oh my
well.
gosh, social media. I can't. That's something I've definitely let go of, especially with COVID. Because I mean,
Yes.
I feel like every day the algorithms change, and then you're told something else, and
Hmm.
and all of that. If anything, I feel like I'm trying to use the time to finally get my website going and my own blog.
Yes.
Like I'm doing some guest writing for other websites and whatnot. But yeah, to take that time to get my own thing going. And by time, that means usually when she's gone to bed at night and everybody else is sleeping. I don't
Right.
know if you found that with with your son.
Yes.
And and there was a part of me again where I think every day you're kind of navigating how it's all going to work out because as health and wellness professionals, it's like, oh, I should be going to bed earlier. I need to get this amount of time, da da da. And then finally, I let that go. I'm like,
Right.
that's also causing stress. So you know what? If this is when I can put in 2 hours and get some stuff done, and it's actually kind of nice because everybody else in the house is asleep and it's like
Yes.
alone time,
Hmm.
then that's fine. That's just
That's
how it's going to be for now.
right. Can we unpack that phrase, finding grace for ourselves?
Oh, sure. I mean, as best as, I mean, I can say what I think it is for me.
Well, I think everyone would be the expert on it for themselves, right?
Yeah,
So,
sure.
what's the Roxy version?
The Roxy version of finding grace for yourself. I think it's I mean, I think it's just a reminder every day of you know, we can put so much pressure on ourselves, whether it's as parents, whether it's as business owners, exercise specialists, or just working with our own bodies. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And I think we have a lot of external forces that can be putting a lot of pressure on us too, right?
Yes.
So I think it's sometimes sitting back and just realizing, I mean, it could be whatever you believe in, whether it's God or the universe, or if you just believe in your own higher spirit, that it's connecting with that and understanding that, you know, we're human and we can't be perfect. Like nobody's perfect. And we're going to make mistakes and we're going to stumble. And that's also part of the journey.
Yes.
And also understanding, and grace sometimes is looking and saying, you know what, this is a certain phase of my life. And so maybe this is how it has to go for a while. And it also goes back to trusting, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I say that with such confidence, but
the practical application is different. Yes.
Well, yeah, because I can be a bit of a control freak, you know, and I want things a certain way. And, you know, sometimes it's that. And that's why I say it's finding grace. So sometimes it's going back and breathing, connecting to your body and being like, okay, calm down a little bit. Look at your life so far. Things have worked out the way that they should, you know, like think of times you've been disappointed and it was like a blessing in disguise, right? And something better came along or whatnot. So I think that's how I would explain finding grace for yourself.
Yeah, and Nikita said there too, like it's part of the journey. I think the key word is journey, right? Like there's not a destination of grace. It's the day to day. It's the ebb and flow with it. And a key part of grace, yes, is trust, like you said. And the other part is forgiveness. How good are you at being a kind of controlling type person at forgiving yourself?
Oh, I was like, oh no, he's gonna ask me about forgiveness. You know why? Because it's funny. There's someone in here from my group. I'm in the group agency, which is what Leslie Logan runs. And actually, we had a webinar 2 weeks ago where it was about, and you do a quiz and you find your strength, and they don't call it your weaknesses, but like your lesser strength. And forgiveness, I think out of 28, like forgiveness was like number 26 or 28. Yeah. So it's, which just means, according to this, it just means you have to work a little bit harder at it, which is true. Like I have that type of personality that I can be like, I know what you did to me on June 10th, 2008. You know, like I remember.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, that definitely does take some effort. Finding grace and forgiveness. Yeah, I would probably say that's a big obstacle. Because like I said, it's, we can be so hard on ourselves. And, you know, I loved how you said at the beginning, you were talking about, you know, being a good role model for your son so that when he does grow up, you know, he has this confidence. And you know, I love my parents, and of course, like there are so many great things, but somebody asked me the other day, like what I would do differently from parenting. And I don't know if you find this, like growing up in a West Indian family, like it's tough love. You know what I mean? And it's always just like, what are you so sensitive about, you know, kind of thing. Like, and the whole attitude was, well, if you're sensitive with us, you know, what are you going to be like in the real world? And meanwhile, it's just like, I don't care what they think in the real world. I care about what you guys think, you know? So I feel like with that upbringing a bit, you know, that it does make you tough in some instances, but it also makes it a little bit harder to be vulnerable. I don't know if that makes sense. So
it does.
That's why when you said that about raising your son, I mean, I want to do the same thing for my daughter. You know, it's, I mean, it doesn't mean being clingy and spoiling her, because I definitely don't want her to grow to be a dysfunctional individual, you know, but giving her enough space to be independent, but also making sure it's always surrounded with love and acceptance. And again, the same sort of thing, like showing herself grace and understanding that, you know, again, it's a journey. So you have to make mistakes. You have to stumble and get back up and, you know, all of that stuff.
Right. My parents were, I mean, like West Indian parents, but they were like hardback Jamaican, grab a belt every time, you know.
They were or they weren't?
They were not.
Oh.
Don't get me wrong. Like I tasted the
Or
belt a
the
couple
threat
times.
was
Like,
there. The
no,
threat
yeah,
was there.
maybe it was my personality. Like you only have to beat me once to recognize that that's probably not the best way to do things. But that there's a sense of understanding your kids. I think of how my dad and my mom parented me, and obviously it was different from my siblings. But this is an example of something that happened when I was a little bit older, where we had like a graduation or some kind of event, and my dad let me borrow his camera, like, back in the day, camera outfit in Minolta with the lenses and the big bag
Yeah.
and stuff. And so went to this event, took my pictures. My dad let me use his camera. And then as I was driving away, I put the camera on the top of the car, got in the car, talked to my buddies, drove
You
off,
forgot about the camera on the top of the car. Oh my
got
gosh.
home,
Did you get
camera's
licks?
not. That's the whole thing, right? Like, so I got home, couldn't find it, drove back, checked everywhere, and then finally, tail between my legs, come home like an hour late after searching, looking on the road and all this stuff. And then my dad, looked at me and realized that I couldn't punish myself. Like, he couldn't punish me more than I was punishing myself
Yeah.
in that moment. And he was like, you know what? Insurance can cover another camera. That's it. And
Oh.
just like kind of let me go. Right? That was a
Yeah.
perfect opportunity for licks. Perfect opportunity for it. But I realized in moments like that it was more about understanding your child than punishing them for doing something wrong.
Right.
And that was a moment of grace for me to recognize, okay, as a parent, there are times when I'm going to have to like kind of be hard on them, but there's times I have to lay back and see how much are they beating themselves up right now. And
That's true. That's
as
very
they get
true.
older, you learn those things, and I've learned to navigate that with my kids. And that's something I took, from him, that,
Yeah.
even as
Well, I don't want to paint my parents as like
I know I'm not
these
going to call
people that
CS
like,
on them now.
took the belt out. It was more like the threat, For
Hmm?
me, I just had to be the threat and I would disappear, you know.
Just, yes.
Whereas I think my younger brother would challenge and be like, "Oh yeah, that's fine. I'll go get the belt."
Mhm.
And then of course my dad's like, "I didn't actually want to beat him, but I mean, he
Yes.
brought me the belt, like
Right.
that sort of defying things. So he didn't have a
Yes.
choice." So
Wow. Yes.
yeah.
That's parenting 101, West Indian
Parenting
style.
101. Oh my gosh. But I mean, I don't know about you, but there's so much, I feel like there's so much humor in West Indian culture too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we can go on for days on that, but
Definitely.
yes.
Definitely.
But no, I love the grace piece. I love the confidence piece as well. And I was reading your one article about that. How can I put it? I don't even say balance, but something with self-esteem in general, how like there's an ebb and flow within ourselves where there's moments where we are so full of self-esteem and look at me, and there's other times when it's like, I'm just gonna hide.
Oh, I mean, I think, yeah, but again, that's just life and part of the journey, right? Because how many other factors might come up, right?
Right.
Like it's, have you been stressed? Are you moving? Are you getting
Hmm.
enough sleep? Like think about when you haven't had enough sleep and you're tired. You're just that
Yes.
much more on edge to either be, hangry or
Hmm.
snap at someone, or everything just takes a little more effort, or it's easier to get down on yourself, you
Yes.
know?
Right.
So I think it's like anything. It's like nothing is ever concrete. Like if you ask anybody who has an addiction, like anyone who's been sober for how many years, it never stops. It's
Right.
a constant thing. I mean, that's why they have their sponsors and they have to talk to them. And I feel like, I mean, I'm not comparing, necessarily self-esteem to somebody who's had, an alcohol issue, but
Right. Right.
if the underlying sort of idea is that nothing's ever concrete, like we don't go, okay, I've solved this problem or this issue or this trauma
Right.
and
I'm above it
done.
forever.
Yeah, never think about it again. Or sometimes you think you do, and then something comes up and triggers, and you're like,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, am I still here? Am I still thinking about this? Is it
Right.
still triggering me?
Yeah, yeah. Those are common things. I think we lose touch with that because, the moment that we feel good, we're on top of things. It's almost like something will come along, and that's the thing that throws us for a loop because we thought we'd mastered it.
Right. Or I mean, I guess if we talk about grace and whatnot, if you think about, it's like you said, when everything's going well, we're happy and, that's when we're our best selves. But if
Yes.
something, something goes awry or there's an obstacle, that's when you actually have to fight harder to find the grace
Yes.
and be grateful, which is really tough,
It is really tough.
you
It's a
know?
constant fight there, like as Uni said. Like we're always in this fight.
Yeah. I think it's tough. Or I guess, and I mean, everybody has their story. That's one thing I think everybody has a story, you know,
Yes.
if you get to know people. That's why it's so really cool that you do these core conversations.
Hmm.
Because everybody has something different to add. And even if someone appears like they've had, the best life or things have been easy for them, there's usually something that would surprise you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I try and be transparent with that with my life, and I never want it to come across like I'm bleeding all over everybody when I share my stories. But even if I'm doing a leadership talk, I'll open with the fact that I went through a divorce, or I've been demoted from a job, or I'm in a blended family right now. Like there's some pieces to the puzzle that I want to have out on the table, because people do start with projecting the worst part of themselves against the best part of me, right? So
Yeah.
I'm never going to look like him. I'm never going to be good at Pilates like him. I'm never going to be in a place where I'm speaking, whatever. It's like, no, everyone's had their battles. Here's a little piece of my story just to take it down a notch.
Right.
Now let's talk.
Oh, definitely. Because
Yeah.
again, especially with social media, we can, we generally see the happier side of things, not the
Yes.
struggle behind the great photo we just took,
Yes.
or like Jason had said, life is always going to test you to
Hmm.
maintain balance.
Right.
It's very true. Yeah. I was
Yeah.
going to say
No,
something, but I lost my train of thought.
that's okay. Well, it'll come back.
I'll blame mommy brain.
Right. What's my blame then? I can't I have nothing here. Um, the who knows?
I don't know what to say, man. I can't say.
Let's. I just want to shift gears quickly. Just tell me about your Pilates journey. How did you find Pilates?
Ah, interesting. You mean pilots?
Pilates,
So
yes.
I found Pilates when I went to York University,
Okay.
and in the dance program, and I
Okay.
actually started dance pretty late. Here's a fun fact: if I hadn't gotten into the dance program, I probably would have been a furniture designer.
Oh,
That
really?
was what I wanted to do. Yeah. Um, but I ended up getting into York University for dance. I went there, and in the first year, I saw a flyer, and it said, Pilates classes on the Reformer, and it was a ridiculous price. It was something like $20 for a private or something like that.
Wow. Yeah.
And I mean, because it was subsidized by the university.
Yes.
And I guess I'm the type of personality, I'm very much into, what's happening. I want to try this, and more so when I was younger. So I just went up to the reception and I'm like, knew nothing about Pilates, absolutely nothing. So I don't even know why I would think, let's take it. And I was like, oh, I want to sign up for these pilots classes. And they're like, you
Nice.
mean Pilates? And I was like, yeah, okay, but it's spelled like pilots,
Yes.
or something, or like it sounds like that's how it should be pronounced. So they said, oh yeah, sure, blah, blah, blah. I paid, and it was this little dungeon. Like it literally looked like a dungeon, because if you go into the basement of where the dance studio used to be at York University, you would go down this hall, like it was kind of dark,
Okay.
behind the studios. Like nobody went there except for the maintenance people. So you go down there and up, and there'd be this sort of like chain, door, like a fenced door
Yes.
with
It was
something behind
like
it,
a repurposed storage room.
kind of. And then you would be dragged open, and it would be a small room with two reformers, a bicycle, and I think there was a chair. And yeah, and then we started doing classes in there, and I really liked it. And I'll never forget when we did those classes all the time. There was one maintenance guy that would come by, and he would pop in and he'd just be like, what is this stuff?
Yeah.
He's like, it looks like medieval torture machines. He's like, every time I come by here, I don't understand. He's like, what is this
Hmm.
stuff? It was really funny. But that's how I got into Pilates. And when my sessions finished, I think I did 10 sessions and they were semi-private with another dance major. Um, I actually did the training. I did the training through Stop Pilates. And that was because I thought privates outside of the subsidized university program, they were so expensive, you know. And as a
Yes.
university, you know, dancer, I didn't have that kind of money. So I was like, well, why don't I just do the training and I can learn everything for myself? Like, no intention of
Yes.
teaching it or anything. You're just
Right.
going to learn it for myself. And yeah, and then train myself.
That's a total student mind mentality. It's like,
Totally.
how can
And
I get this for free? Ultimately, is a lot.
well, it wasn't free. I mean,
Yeah.
it was, you know, still money. And then, so that was around, I think, my second year of university. And
Mhm.
then, so I did it at the same time as that I was in university. So by the time I graduated, I finally also kind of got my certification and everything.
Very cool.
So it basically took like I took 2.5 years to do my certification. It was
Yes.
me and there was another guy who was also a dancer. His name was Moses. And I think it was because the two of us that Stott ended up making a rule that after you finished or you had to do all of your training within a certain amount of time.
Because you guys dragged it out so long.
I did because you know it was a lot cheaper. I mean, this is 1997 or
Okay.
1998, right? Like
Yeah.
this was still when the lawsuit was going on.
Mm.
So it was just at the end where they were like, "Oh, you can't really say Pilates. You have to say, you know, exercise based on
Yes.
Pilates or whatever." That was still like ending, or that lawsuit. Yeah, and so at the time I paid for everything, like the full comprehensive program, because
Hmm.
it was a lot cheaper than doing each one.
Yes.
And yeah, and then I was like, well, I'm in university, so I'll do one course this year, one course this year. Yeah.
So they made like really no money off you when you stretch it out that long. So they
Probably not, because
could
then I would
turn
also go
around and
down there and work. And then I ended up getting a work study at the university. So I
okay.
ended up teaching dance majors
Hmm.
for a year or two as well,
Very cool.
which was kind of
Yes.
cool. Yeah, yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
in terms of your applies learning and stuff, like what other have you taken any other courses? Have you like continued like to go with
Outside
it
of
now?
STAT, you mean?
Yes. Yeah.
After the comprehensive? Yeah, I ended up, well, I was focused on dance at first. I ended up moving out to Calgary for a bit
Okay.
and worked at a studio there. It was always kind of on the back burner. And then when I
Hmm.
decided to stop earning my money from dancing, I wanted to go full-fledged into Pilates and I wanted to use that to kind of travel around the world.
Hmm.
So I ended up working at different studios and also sort of jumping in on their programs.
Yeah.
So I was exposed to Peak Pilates. I was exposed to Physical Mind when I was in Thailand.
Hmm.
Michael King through Turkey. I actually have a really good relationship with Michael King.
Very cool.
He reminded me when I met him much later on, he reminded me that you can still have fun when you're teaching Pilates, you know, as long as you have a reason and as long as you have a reason and like a basis for why you're doing something, you
Yes.
know. So it's not that you're
Right.
just making something up like, oh, this looks pretty or this is
Yeah, I
fun,
found this on YouTube. Let's
you
try
know.
it, sort of thing.
Yeah, that you can have fun with Pilates and you know
Mhm.
add in some of your dance and choreography and whatnot.
I think, yeah, I've taken courses in the past where I felt like it was almost militant, and
Yeah,
the teaching style is very militant and do this and here and sure and that, and yeah, and it does lose its fun in it, in the sense that like, yeah, there's an element of fun while you're still being intentional that gets lost.
definitely. I mean, it also depends. I mean, people are so different. Like
Hmm.
I also like sometimes just having like a set program that you do for a while and you know you're
Yes.
going to come in and you're going to work on that and within that sort of set program you can continue to grow with each exercise and build
Right.
it up, you know. But
Yeah.
then other times you want to change it up. Like I
Right.
remember there was a time where, you know, it was really the whole convention circuit, like it was huge. in
Yes.
fitness. In the last couple of years, it's kind of gone down in
Right.
regards to opportunities and stuff. But I did a couple of conventions, but I always remember it was almost like you had to have a gimmick to get in.
Right.
You know, like and it was like, why can't I just teach a really good Pilates class? Like, why does it have to be, like
On trend.
piloxing or something?
Yeah,
you
right,
know?
exactly. Yeah, yeah. That's the thing, right? Like, I mean, I think, well, yeah, we see that with conferences here in Toronto. Like, unless you're marketing something new, like, there's not that much value in just the technical skill of being a good teacher and getting people results.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of lost in there.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame. But again, I feel like that whole convention circuit is dying out a bit.
Right, right, yeah. And then, so what's the rolling program that you do as well?
Oh, Yamuna body rolling.
Okay.
That's out of New York. The woman's name is Yamuna, and she created this. And it's basically different sized balls of various densities, and you roll on them to align and release your body. So you're probably like, well, how is that different than foam rolling or like rolling on a tennis ball?
Yeah, I was going to ask the difference. Yes.
Well, in regards to foam rolling, it's much more detailed.
Okay.
And the whole system has like a logic that's based on how your body works. So, like the insertion and origin of each muscle. And the Yamuna work specifically is all about Uni's like, I got my balls.
Ah, come on. Yeah.
And yeah, it's great work, and it really opens up the body in a different way, like
Yeah.
different than just massage or just foam rolling. I'm personally not a fan of foam rolling with a hard foam roller. I think if you
Right.
have a soft roller, if you're doing a method like melt, I think it's excellent. But that is also focused on the lymphatic system, whereas Yamuna is focused on actually going and stimulating the bone and realigning
Okay.
your body. Yeah.
That's,
When you have
yeah,
a
that's,
chance, you should do a session.
I'd love
It
to. Yeah.
feels really, it's different. It feels amazing. Like right now I'm working with a dancer, and it's just, I mean, it's meant to be complementary to everything else that you're doing.
Yes.
Like there was a period where I was injured with my knee, and like I just couldn't, Pilates wasn't working for me. It was
Yeah.
only the body rolling. And during my pregnancy, it's really funny, but my body did not want to do machine work at all. So like I also teach gyrotonic.
Yes.
So my body did not want to be on the machines, did not want reformers, nothing like that. It could only be like
Interesting.
mat work,
Yeah. And how
body
did you know
weight.
your body didn't want it? Like, what was the signals your body was telling you that you chose to listen to?
Well, you could just feel, I mean, I tried it. I mean, I remember going on a reformer, and, it just didn't feel right, or my body didn't feel good afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the same, and I was really surprised that it didn't like the gyrotonic, because also gyrotonic is very different than Pilates, which I thought would be like more opening and with the breath and the way it sort of flows a little more than
But
Pilates.
still, no, eh?
No, I think it was
Yeah.
just, I don't know, just being on machines, and maybe my body just wanted to be more just connected with its body, no distractions of machines or
Yes.
anything else.
Right. Right. When I had Coach Kennedy Ludato on, he teaches for Trigger Point among other education like certs and stuff. So we had a really interesting dialogue around fascia, right? And
Yeah.
does working with these balls like address the issues of fascia and how the connective tissue with the muscles are more focused on the bones itself?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, regardless, when you're rolling, it's definitely you're going to hit fascia, you're going
Stimulate.
to hit
Right.
muscles anyway.
Right.
But it goes deeper. Like I'm also a big fan of the melt method. I don't know if you know that one. I'm not certified
Okay.
in melt or anything like that. I just do it for myself. But
Okay.
it's a soft foam roller, and it also has a sort of system. And that, like I said, is all about the lymphatic system. So yeah, so it is about fascia and hydrating the fascia.
Yes.
And I feel good when I do that, but it's also very different than the Yamuna work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like with the
Right.
melt, it feels like I feel a little tingling of circulation, but when I do the Yamuna, it's like it's been described as a workout, a chiropractic session, and a self massage in one. And
Oh,
I think
nice.
that's what will surprise people, especially
Yes.
when you get, like I said, like dancers, or a lot of the times men, like they'll, I don't know what it is. Probably not. I mean, I don't mean men like you that do Pilates and are open to different systems, but a lot of the guys that are, like CrossFit, and they're, you know, they can like lift what, I don't know, 100 kilos or something like that, right?
Yes.
But then you get them on a ball to roll,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like
Tears.
sweating, and
Yeah.
yeah, but not only that, that's fine, but then
Mhm.
they just don't want to do it, and you're just like, oh,
Right.
and they're like, and then you never see them again. But they're surprised at how hard it is.
I just loved your grunts. Like that's just all you get as they storm out.
Kind of, a little
Yeah.
bit. And you talk to them after, and they're like, you can see they're kind of beat up,
Yes.
and they're just like, yeah, like my body needs, they know that they need it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's more with maybe more macho types. Like they know that they need it, but to sort of take the time and do something that's very different than what they're used to. I don't
Yes.
know if it's an ego thing.
I would guess it's an ego thing because,
Yeah.
that's the conversation I had with Derek yesterday too. When we start to define what real men do Pilates looks like, part of that is putting down your ego enough to accept the fact that this is something new. I'm probably not going to be good at it. I'm probably going to hurt as a result of it, but it's going to make me better in the end.
Yeah.
And can we push through those first two steps to get progress or not? And I think that's the piece that where we don't, there's that disconnect. And that's why a lot of people don't step in the door because they're not going to look good doing it. I'm not doing
Right.
my bench press or my bicep curls that I can take a selfie while while I'm doing it, right? So we need more of it, but we don't want to push through to that more.
Yeah.
I could
No,
wear pink too, you need, just for the record.
yeah. Yeah. I actually don't really like men in pink. Sorry.
that's,
Maybe that's terrible. I don't know. Personally, I don't know. I haven't
yeah,
seen a shade of pink that I really liked on a man.
yeah.
I don't know if Uni's going to respond to that, but
I
yeah,
know it.
that's my opinion.
Put it in your comments, in the comment section,
Yeah.
your vote on men in pink as we as we dialogue here.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so the work, it does take work, and you can finish a body rolling session, and you'll feel, and you can see the difference on people. It's
Yes.
pretty cool. And that's why I'll usually work on either one side of the body, or there's even face work where
Yes.
you work on one side of the face, and it's like everything's kind of up. It's like they have Botox on one side
On
of their
one
face,
side.
and
Yeah.
it's just from rolling and like releasing any tension.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
again, it's about the bones. So if you think of all the bones in our face, right? And,
Right.
we have these habits and we get stressed, or like we grind our teeth. It's actually sort of pulling and narrowing our
Yeah.
body in, right?
Right.
So when
Same
you
as
do the
anywhere in our,
rolling,
yeah.
you're opening all of that out. And
Totally
it's the
makes
same
sense.
thing with the body. So like we can roll one side, and then you'll see the leg is visually longer. And you can see how it's open
Yes.
from the hip and down. So you get that relief, and then of course you get like a feeling of circulation. But then there's also sometimes people feel a bit beat up, and it's like they had like even muscle soreness.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's no, that's we need that. We definitely need that. And I think, like you said about the face, it's like your hamstring or your calf or something. You don't think about muscles in your face that may be tight or tense or never
Yeah.
actually had a release because it just lives in a tense state. And just
True.
addressing those things and how that's all connected. Like even when Kennedy was on, like, sorry, he was saying too, like, a woman wearing high heels, like they have back pain because they wear heels. Like you don't think about the fascia in your foot impacting the
Right.
ankle, the knee, the hip, the spine, the shoulder. Your neck pain is caused by your foot. Like we don't think about the interrelatedness of our body
But I was
system.
just gonna say that like the body is so fascinating.
Yes.
I mean, in how, like, it's true, like even jaw pain can
Hmm.
be connected to your pelvic floor.
Right.
So
Yeah.
a lot of the times, like when you're in that sort of last 2 weeks of pregnancy, it's a good idea to work on releasing your jaw to also
Good to
help you
know.
open, or there's this correlation between the hips and your shoulders. It's like the different girdles of the body.
Yes.
So I
Right.
find like even with, you can get people that sort of release across their chest and through the shoulders, and you can see the difference in their hips. Their hips have also
Yes.
released. So
Right.
so it is fascinating work, and you're right. Like a lot of people, you can work on their feet, and that will relieve a lot of the pain, just the connections that go through.
Right. That's the beauty of, yeah, it is really amazing. And that's the beauty of these conversations, Roxy, because like we get to hear like what right? Like it's one thing to see a picture of you or see your baby or see some of the things you do and like, oh, she's probably really interesting. I'm going to sign up for a session. And then
Right.
when they hear you talk about these things and your passion and your understanding of the body and this interrelatedness, then it's like, okay, this person can probably help me. And
Yeah.
I love these conversations for that, just highlighting what you do, and that's like you're super smart on this stuff. Like it's not just like, okay,
Oh,
I'm gonna help you lose 10 pounds. It's I'm gonna
right.
help you,
Well, I
right?
have to be honest. I mean, if you talk about like your ideal clientele or whatnot,
Yes,
I mean, if you want to lose weight, that's fine, but that's never my main goal when I work with people. It's
right.
more like I'm a bit of a snob when it comes to posture. Like if there's anything about aesthetics, I don't care like what your weight or your size is, but if you're collapsed in your torso or, like shoulders are forward, like I cringe when I see most people running. You must
Yeah.
cringe too when you
Oh
see
yeah.
people
Yeah.
running and the
Yeah.
posture and stuff and you're just like, "Oh my gosh, do they know how much, you know, pressure they're putting on their joints and stuff?"
Right.
So I can be a bit of a snob about that, but I just feel like I always say, the majority of us are not living up to our full potential of our body, right? Because people
Right.
will say, "Oh, I did Pilates and I grew." You didn't grow, actually. You went to your full potential. Like you were
Yeah.
able to lengthen and lift your body up to its full height,
Yes.
right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Because why does an older person lose like a couple centimeters and then they do exercise and they get it back?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And as a trainer, back in the days of, a personal trainer, and you're having these consults with people and they come in and say, I just want to lose 6 pounds, or I just want to get fit for the beach, or I want to fit in this wedding dress. And then there's a dialogue. You see them saying that, but they're like, I just want to work on losing 10 pounds. Like, you need to work on your posture because you need to be up here.
Right.
How do we communicate and fit that dance between what a person needs and what they say they want is always the thing I have to think about too, right? Like,
Well, I think we all have that. And I think a lot of us as teachers will always say, not that we trick the clients, but it's like we give them what they want because there's nothing wrong with that. If somebody comes in and they're just like, I'm not comfortable and I want to lose this weight or I want to look a certain way, then I mean, that's their
it's
prerogative. Like we
important to
can't judge
them.
that either. But we'll be like, okay, we're going to try and help you do that. We're also going to suggest, like my forte isn't nutrition, but I'll be like, you should maybe have someone look at how you're eating, and also it's never one thing. I think that's what we forget. Like it's holistic, it's the whole.
Yes.
So like we're going to focus on the body part, but you can be doing everything right, and if you're not sleeping and you're mega stressed, your body isn't going to make the changes that you want it to make,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So I think it's one, like educating them, and it's also giving them what they want, but then also putting in what we need. Like I can give an
Yes.
example. A couple of years ago, I was guest teaching at this studio, and it was group reformer classes, which was so nice because in Turkey I was teaching mostly privates, and the owner was just like, "Kill them." She's like, "They're like Israeli soldiers. It's like a women's only place," and she's just like, "Murder them." And I'm like, "Well," and I noticed the other teachers weren't really doing like warm ups and stuff, and I can't do that. Like I will never, like I
Just
will
throw people in.
always exactly
Yeah.
like it has to be, at least for me, like it goes against everything that I stand for if I were to just go in and sort of work out your body without anything deeper behind it or properly warming up your body.
Yes.
So I can give you a hard workout, but we're still going to talk about the points of where you need to be and how to make it deeper and whatnot.
Yes.
And I found it was kind of a nice challenge as well because I had to mix the two. Like I had to be able to give them a really hard workout, but also stay true to, form, technique, using the breath, all of this kind of stuff. And so many of them came up afterwards and they were like, no one ever taught us like that. That was so great. I loved
Good.
the mix. Or it was like, I had no idea about this and this. And.
Yeah, that's a fine skill to be able to be always educating while crushing your client so they understand that they had a good workout.
Yeah.
Like when you can educate your clients so that they know that they've had a good workout because there was a dynamic warm up and they learned about breathing and they got a bit more aware of how their shoulder moves and they were able to self-correct and do all that stuff. That's
Yeah.
different than making them sweat with 180 beat per minute heart rate for
Right.
45 minutes, right? Like, and there's a
And look,
difference between those two.
Yeah, and you talk about the person coming in saying they want to lose 10 pounds and they're sitting like this.
Mhm.
And if you just get them up like this, they're going to have the appearance
But they
of already losing probably like 5 pounds, you know? And
right.
that's without having done
Yes.
much, like no actual losing weight.
Right.
Um,
So we're
but
magicians,
I think
basically.
sometimes,
Yeah.
and then I think there are times when, um, you maybe just don't resonate with someone and they're not the right client,
Right.
you're not the right teacher for them. And
Right.
there's nothing wrong with that either. You
Nothing
know,
wrong
like
with that.
sometimes it's saying, you know what, I don't think this is the right fit. I think this person might be a better fit for you,
Yes.
or another instructor or whatnot. You know,
Right.
some people
And
just won't get where you're coming from. Like we can't always be, and that's another thing too. We can't always put that on ourselves.
right. I
Like
was
to train and you know help everyone. Or that's the thing I was going to say too. Like thank you for your compliments earlier, but I mean, don't you think like there's still just so much to learn? Like right now I'm finishing a
mm,
course that I bought like 2 years ago and I'm like, this is ridiculous. I have to finish it. And
right.
it's about the pelvic floor.
Yes.
And I'm just in the anatomy part and I'm just like, oh my gosh, the amount of anatomy. So I mean, I don't think we're constantly learning for one.
Absolutely.
And also I always look at it from the point of view that, like I look at it from, I'll just speak for myself, that I'm a guide. So I always look at it as a relationship and we work together, you know?
Yes.
So I'm not
Well
just going
said.
to tell you, it's going to be like, you know, what do you think about this? Or we're going to try this. And you have to let me know, you know,
Mhm.
later, how did you feel? Did that trigger something? Did that work for you? And
Yes.
so that's why I feel like it's a journey for both of us.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, I celebrate that journey and celebrate where we're at. And that's the grace piece, like we said earlier, right? Like
Yeah.
we need to be able to be like, yeah, look how far I've come. It's like, whoa, look how far I still have to go. But
Right.
we're at a pretty good spot right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and it's exactly what you said, and sort of celebrating what we have done, because a lot of the times it's like, what can we get next? What
Mhm.
is the next thing to do? And
Yes.
it's really easy to get caught up in that, as opposed to, you know, literally stopping and smelling the roses and being like, wow, you know what? Like I actually
Yes.
accomplished all of this, or I was able to achieve this,
Right.
you know?
One day I was with my son at the gym before we went into this quarantine, and he's 14. The younger guys are 14. So we went and we played some basketball. We went on the squash court and we threw some medicine balls, did some medicine ball slams. We went down the gym, showed him a couple exercises, and then this little kid walked by with his dad, maybe like just barely walking, holding onto his dad's hand. He's so cute, this little boy. And my son said to me, he's like, Dad, do you miss that stage? Like, what's your favorite stage with us as kids? I'm like,
Oh,
right now, buddy, we just like played I threw medicine balls. We did a workout. Like, dude, that is the best. Like, this is the best time with you, right? Like, I don't like that was fun, but this is fun right now. And I feel like that's it. Like, I can't wait till they could drive. I can't wait till they could walk. I can't wait till they could
right.
talk. It's like, well, no, this stage right now is like the best stage. And it's the same for our Pilates journey, right? Like this right now is the best stage. And when you
Yeah.
have this pelvic floor mastering under your belt too, that'll be your best stage, right? When I feel
Yeah.
like, like whatever it is, that next stage, that'll be your best stage. But for now,
Thank you. That's a nice reminder.
you're in a
Because
good
I
spot.
feel like my daughter is teaching me that, like, to be more present. I don't really have a
Yes.
choice. Like, let's say I'm feeding her and I'm like trying to do something on my phone. I feel these little eyes on me with
Yes.
this look that's like, what the hell do you think you're doing? And I'm like,
What?
oh, okay. Um, so she does make me more present, but I like that reference because I don't think I was always putting it towards, you know, Pilates in my work either.
Mm,
It's constant.
it's
I mean, we're
constant.
always learning, figuring it out. Yeah.
Yep. In the 4 minutes we have left, do you have any kind of closing words of wisdom for our audience?
Closing words of wisdom. I guess, I mean, just keep living the journey. And I mean, like, that's why we have other people too, you know,
Yes.
to
Yeah.
remind us. And even with COVID, you know, there's still a lot of resources out there, and finding a good supportive environment and remembering to go within and finding that grace for yourself. And I
Yes.
think it's a constant thing. Like we still want to strive for stuff, but let's celebrate our wins as we go along.
Yes. Well said.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay.
Roxy.
That's the
Yeah.
top of my head.
Yeah, I usually don't prep people so that it's actually off the top of their head. That's an
Yeah.
authentic answer, right? Like,
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Thanks for listening to Core Conversation today. I encourage you to check out our website at personalvictory.ca/core conversations to keep the conversation going. We have our forum where we can talk about different issues. You can highlight any teacher trainings that you have. You can ask questions of our guests, and you can just find out who is coming up next. So join us there, and thanks again for listening to Core Conversations.